What's up guys, Lon here from Android Authority, and our LG G6 review is already live, and if you haven't seen it yet, that will be linked down below in the description or up here in a card or towards the end of this video. But we know that sometimes your question may not always be answered in a review, so we took it to social media to see what questions you guys still had about the LG G6. So let's go ahead and get started. This is your questions answered on the LG G6. First question comes from JFunk on Twitter. Why doesn't the US have quad DAC and wireless charging in one G6 model? Well, there actually isn't even a version of the G6 that comes with both a quad DAC and wireless charging. If you're in Asian markets like Korea, you'll get the quad DAC and you'll also get 64 gigabytes of storage as an option. If you're in the US, you get wireless charging, and that's exclusive to the US model only. And if you're in European markets, you don't get either one of those features. And LG's reasoning for this was that they sort of pick and choose features that they feel are important or in big demand in certain regions. So apparently people in the US really want wireless charging. People in Korea would rather have a quad DAC, and apparently Europeans don't want either one. I don't buy it, but that's the reasoning. Question number 2 also comes from Twitter. FFS Flow asks, thoughts on the UI design and how it compares to other skins like stock Android or Grace UX. Well, for me personally, stock Android will always be my #1 choice. If I had to pick between stock Android or skins, I prefer stock Android just because it's Android the way Google intended it to be, and it's just a clean experience. But I will say that the GUI on the G6 is actually really clean. LG has done a really good job with improving it. The colors are much more muted now. They're not quite as in your face. The icons are all the same size and the same shape. And the new apps have been revamped to this 2:1 aspect ratio look. And it actually falls more in line with Google's material design. So I really like it a lot. As far as how it compares to Samsung's Grace UX, I think it's just a step behind it, but it's not too far off. It's still a really good experience. So I think LG has done a fantastic job with the GUI. Michael, the editor on Instagram, asked, do you think the 18:9 aspect ratio will be much of an issue because of the black bars at the side, and because majority of our content is 16:9 or 21:9, similar to how the average user would have a problem with an ultra-wide monitor because of the content they consume? So if 18:9 does become the new standard in smartphone screens, which I think it will, there will be some obvious growing pains. Right now, most apps actually scale perfectly fine to the new aspect ratio, but there are some apps out there, mostly games, that won't scale properly, and in those situations you will have the black bars, and obviously with 16:9 video as well. But once the content catches up to it, and once app developers get a chance to update their applications for the new aspect ratio, I think it'll be perfectly fine and we won't have the issues with the black bars anymore. The next question is also from Instagram. Actually, the next few questions will be from Instagram. Kadir Muhammad asks, why do LG flagships always have crappy battery life? I'm actually averaging like 5 hours of screen on time on the G6 pretty consistently, so the battery life on this is actually pretty good. So I hope that answers your question. A6IM asks, I'd like a detailed camera review. How does the 5 megapixel selfie cam compare to other flagships? Is there too much of that beauty effect when taking a selfie? How do both front and back cameras perform in low light? Well, to be honest, the front-facing camera isn't really that great. If I had to pick a weak point of the G6, it would definitely be the front-facing camera. It's only 5 megapixels, which LG has been using for the last 3 years or so now. And it's not just because of the resolution, it's also because the detail really isn't there, especially in low light. It really falls apart in low light. You get some really soft looking images, and they're just really grainy as well. So it's not the best front-facing camera. And as far as the rear cameras go, stick with the standard angle because you get the wider aperture and the optical image stabilization that helps in low light, and the images come out with better color and better sharpness, whereas the wide angle, they're a lot more washed out, and you also get a lot more blown out highlights as well. So if you shoot in low light, definitely stick with the primary lens unless you really have to have that wide angle. Next question comes from Roberto. Is it a big loss that the modularity system was removed? Absolutely not. The modularity was more or less a flop on the G5, so unless you are one of the 2 people out there that really enjoyed the modularity, everything about the G6, from the glass and metal design, the dust and water resistance, the wireless charging, all those moves were made for the better, and the G6 definitely gets LG back into the smartphone competition, whereas the G5 was really pretty much a forgettable smartphone. At least anything good about it was forgettable. Last question comes from Shan Spiring. Would you recommend this for someone with very small hands? And yes, I totally would, because even though it has a 5.7-inch screen, the 18:9 aspect ratio combined with the really small bezels actually makes this a really compact phone. It's even smaller than Google's Pixel XL and the iPhone 7 Plus, which have smaller 5.5-inch screens, and it's even smaller than the LG V20 and the HTC U Ultra, which have 5.7-inch screens. So this is a very compact phone. I think anybody with small hands or wants a phone with better one-handed usability, this is going to be a really good choice. All right, there you go, guys. That's going to wrap it up for this little LG G6 Q&A session. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions. And if you haven't seen the review, check the link down below in the description or up here in a card or at the end of this video. It should be appearing somewhere right here or over here, wherever it shows up. And check us out on social media as well: Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Google+, and check out the website for more in-depth coverage, AndroidAuthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.